Hi everybody, this is a video, one of a series of videos I'm going to be doing on the Supreme Court cases that I have assigned everybody to read. This video is on Brown v. Board of Education. Okay, let's start talking a little bit about Brown v. Board of Education. Brown versus Board of Education was the Supreme Court case that ruled separate but equal was inherently not equal, and it had the effect immediately and directly of desegregating schools. So up until this point, 1954, schools across the country could be segregated if that's what the communities wanted. Segregation, of course, meaning that white kids went to the white school and black kids went to the black school. Okay, so I find this case interesting for a number of reasons. Outside of the historic nature of the case, the sort of precedent-setting landmark decision portion of the case, I also find it interesting in that the reasoning the court gives for declaring segregation unconstitutional and separate but equal unconstitutional is often misunderstood. By which I mean people don't seem to actually understand on what basis the court ruled separate but equal unconstitutional, and the reason they ruled it unconstitutional is really important in understanding how law and citizenship and things like that can interact with each other. So I guess first a little bit of background is, in order, briefly, this case overturns the Supreme Court decision Plessy versus Ferguson, which was ruled in 1896. That decision ruled that it was constitutional to have separate facilities for white people and black people. Separate facilities. You can have those separate facilities as long as they were equal in nature. So if you had a white school, the white school had to have the same resources and all that jazz as a segregated black school. Okay, that was ruled constitutional, A-OK, separate but equal, let's go team. That decision was overturned in 1954 with this Brown v. Board of Education decision. The couple of things that I talked about being very interesting about this case. Okay, so one, the court ruled separate but equal unconstitutional, but not based upon the reason that everybody seems to interpret it as. We've all seen the pictures and we all know that separate but equal was never truly equal in terms of resources. We've all seen the pictures, hopefully, of, whites only fountain and colored fountain, and one looks a lot nicer than the other. We all know of, hopefully, the fact that white schools were generally of much better quality than the segregated black schools throughout this time. There was never, well, in most cases there was not a equalness between the segregation, between the separateness. There was not generally a true separate but equal situation. However, this case was, or came out of Topeka, Kansas. And this was very, very important because And the Supreme Court case states this in it as well. By all accounts, by just about every measure, the school system in Topeka, Kansas had achieved separate but equal. The white schools and the black schools were equally good. Equal funding, equal commitment to having good teachers, to having all the resources that students needed, class sizes, anything you could think of. Excuse me. Equal across the board. So the Supreme Court has a case before them where separate but equal is actually being carried out. And they have to decide, is separate but equal constitutional? They do not say separate but equal is unconstitutional because in reality, equal resources are not given between white schools and black schools, for example. Here's where they rest their decision on separate but equal being not equal. So, under the 14th Amendment, all citizens are supposed to be treated equal before the law. They have equal rights and equal due process. One of the things kids have the right to is an education. The court recognizes and says that an education is important not just for education's sake, though that is enough, but it's also a matter of economic well-being and well-being for our armed forces that we have a well-educated citizenry. So with the 14th Amendment in mind, the court asked the question. We come then to the question presented. Does segregation of children in public schools solely on the basis of race, even though the physical facilities and other tangible factors may be equal, deprive the children of the minority group of equal educational opportunities? We believe it does. The Supreme Court there says that even if all tangible factors are equal, does separate but equal still not equal because it denies minority children access to equal education opportunities? It does. Why? They cite a series of studies that had begun in the 1940s, some of which are based on the Dahl test, which has been replicated every single year or whenever it's been done since the 1940s. I would encourage anybody to go and look on YouTube, Dahl test racism, or just maybe even Dahl test. You'll find a video on it. What it does, what the Dahl test does, is it asks white children and black children to look at two dolls, one white doll and one black doll, and then ask the children, what doll is the pretty doll? What doll is the ugly doll? What doll is the black doll? What doll, and giving away the ending here, what doll is the bad doll? What doll is the good doll? Which one is smart? Which one is not smart? Etc. In this study, we find that white children and black children will choose the white doll as the pretty doll, the good doll, the smart doll. The white and black children will then also choose the black doll as the ugly doll, the bad doll, and the dumb doll. What this shows to us is that both culture, but in this case the issue is law, enforced inferiority by the law starts to create that inferiority complex within children at a very young age. So when black children would go to school, even if all of the things were similar or the same, they would still recognize, hey, wait, the law is forcing me to go to this other school than white people because the law considers me less than. The law sees me as bad, as not worthy of the same things that white students are. That has a very damaging effect on the psyche of children, and that damaging effect impacts children's educational opportunities. And it is on that basis, the psychological harm that separate but equal does to children, that enforced legal discrimination does to people, that separate but equal was declared unconstitutional. Not because facilities never were separate but equal, but because of the constant legal reinforcement that hammered into black kids' heads that they were inferior in some way, that they were not worthy of respect of the law, respect of their peers, that they had to fall into a subservient role in society. This has a very negative impact on children's educational attainment. For those of you who are curious about this topic, about children and education and how sort of the broader society influences and impacts educational attainment, I would encourage y'all to look up the effects of Donald Trump in the way his campaign is currently affecting minority students. There's a common discussion about putting police officers in schools to protect them. If you have police officers running around schools, it can make children feel less safe, because why do we need police officers running around schools? That can negatively affect their educational attainment. I encourage people to look into some of these things. With that being said, that's Brown v. Board of Education, and essentially getting right at the point of why they declared separate but equal, not equal, because of the psychological impact it was having on students. We'll see more videos coming up.